Thank you for invitation, Dr. Lu. And so today I'm going to just focus on this very kind of challenging topic. We all talk about LLMs for some years, for a couple of years, and we know LLM has been performing promising results, right? So I don't need to repeat that. So, but people saying, well, how long does it take for us to move to AGI? And what are the shortcomings of LLMs? And what is the gap? And so to get started, and I say, well, we need to really understand what is the objectives of artificial general intelligence. And this is loosely defined at this point. And then we need to understand what are the major gaps. What are the shortcomings of current LLMs? Then I will enumerate 9 important aphorisms I kind of developed over the last 2 years. And based on those aphorisms or important insights into LLMs, I champion this new vision of coming, how do we arrive at artificial general intelligence? Of course, there are a lot of personal opinions, and so far, very interestingly, the reason actually I publish a couple of books is because when I submit papers to regular conferences, and they have a lot of questions, and I do consider the graduate student nowadays are really narrowly focused on solving one problems. And they may not be able to see big pictures, which I pretty much understand. When I was a graduate student, I can probably just solve homework problems, and first 2 years solving some very rudimental issues. So therefore, my papers always get rejected by the 2 reasons. The first reason is, well, you say putting 2 LLMs together to have a dialogue, and you get better results. For example, you can eliminate hallucination, and you can kind of mitigating biases. And they just don't believe it. And one of the reviewers joking saying, well, you put 2 still repeatable people together, and after their discussion, they can be smarter. You must be kidding. So it's really hard in the last year for me to come across this new paradigm or ideas. And the second challenge is, it takes 10 chapters to convey the entire picture. So if I dissect my book into several chapters and to send to conferences, and they will say, well, you didn't cite your own papers because this is anonymous review. It's really hard for me to cite all my previous work. So there are just tons of holes. So I gave up. I just say, why don't I just put my thoughts together into one paper? So today I'm going to just presenting this entire flow. And so what is the gaps between the current LLMs and AGI? And most of people saying information quality of current LLM can be improved, which I definitely agree, right? You can argue hallucination may be coming from inconsistent output, or maybe the data is insufficient. So with more training data or larger models, those problems could be naturally solved. And some people saying, well, human general intelligence, we can deal with different tasks. And but in the past, AI is kind of very narrow, but we already see LLM can deal with many different tasks. So I don't really think the first 2 problems are unsolvable. In fact, if you make the model bigger and bigger, most of the problem can be tackled. But I think the most serious problem are the following 3. The first one is really the reasoning depth. And researchers argue the current kind of reasoning conducted by LLM may be just memory-based, right? So you say, well, if you have lots of cats, then whatever will be the consequence of having lots of cats, which animals in that same area will be extinct? So the LLM may answer this question not through reasoning, but just through its memory. This is arguable, okay, because nobody can either prove one way or another at this point. But we can definitely talk about it, and we need to improve this reasoning capability. And decision transparency is a big one. And a lot of people saying deep learning is a black box, and LLM is a black box. We just query and we get answers, but we don't know why. We don't see the decision process. But I would reserve on this one. And one of the aphorisms at the end, I would say, LLM appears to be a black box, but it's not a black box. And because it's not a black box, if you can understand the patterns of LLMs, how the LLM get trained, then there's a way to crack it, okay? Then finally is this AI safety issue, value alignment. I think the most challenging part about value alignment is not really saying align to a set of constitutions, but the more challenging part is to be able to adapt to different cultures, right? Different culture, different norms, and people have diversified opinions. So those kind of customization need to be seamlessly performed. And also the current reinforcement learning with human feedback really run into a limitation. There are two problems people already talk about. One is if you changing your parameters based on ethical feedback, then that will lead to degradation of your knowledge pipeline, right? Originally you trained based on your corpus information, whatever. Now you say, no, I don't like this output, that output. So you backproc to modify the parameters. Then original outstanding performance on, let's say, GRE or coding, the performance was degraded. And also people can doing LLM bombing by just hacking reinforcement learning. And lastly, if people have conflicting feedbacks, how do you resolve it? So adaptation flexibility was just not there. So these are the primary issues we want to deal with today in the discussion. And through my books, and you can look at the highlighted one will be the chapters I plan to cover. And first of all, we like to examine the insights into LLMs. Then the second part, chapter 4 to chapter 6, we are talking about how do we put and why we want to put two LLMs together to have a dialogue. And this concept has been misunderstood. People say, well, you put multiple agents together, it's just like mixture of experts. No, mixture of experts is a traditional paradigm. You probably having multiple agents to try to you have masking errors. So the mixture of experts have one major intuition was, if I putting n agents together, and the probability of making the same mistakes will be very low. So therefore, using redundancy, we can improve the final accuracy. But when we say putting LLM together into a dialogue, we are far from doing just mixture of experts, and you will see in today's talk. And then finally, if we have time, we get into how do we actually model linguistic behavior of LLMs. So therefore, you can change the behavior of LLM rather than saying, I only do feedback in an instance space. When you do feedback in instance spaces, you are not really changing the whole behavior. You are only just saying, wow, today your table is very dirty. Probably clean up your table, but you are not correcting the tidiness behavior of a person, right? We probably understand that. So you heard about your mommy nagging about your situation every day, but not really changing the big picture, the behavior of individual person. So let's start with this LLM. Everybody knows how the LLM was trained. The objective function is to predict the missing token accurately. So you put a lot of corpus documents into the training pipeline, and then you say you're taking out some words, and you ask LLM training process to guess those missing words. Here, I deliberately using the missing, this word here, rather than saying the next token, which I would explain why I'm doing this. And then we know we use self-supervised learning. This is saving a lot of time to annotate data. And with virtually all public data available in the world, a huge number of parameters, right? Multiple layers, and there are so many different tokens. So far, seems to be the larger, the better the performance of the models. But I believe we already run into the limitations. So the key is to consider context. The success of current LLM is its ability to consider context using the attention model. If you look back at the ACL or linguistic kind of research in the last 50 years, probably even 80 years, and started with 1950, and some linguistics saying, well, the key to understand a word's meaning is to understand its neighbors together with its neighbors. So context is really critical, but not until maybe 2020 or 2018, when the attention model was kind of published or produced, this context was able to be modeled. So the revolution thing is really the attention model, which is able to consider context in understanding the meaning of a word, okay? So after that, pretty much, I think most of the linguistic problem or any NLP problem has been solved. But let's carefully come back to visit the history of two different directions. So we might probably heard about BERT before we heard about GPT. The difference between the two is BERT using so-called masked language model. Masked language model means you have sentences, I take out random words from the sentences, not necessarily the last word. But GPT used generative pre-trained transformer, which is just an ordinary language model predicting the next word with the context. Why these two differences? I mean, why these two are so different in the results? And most of people may not have paid attention to it. Let's use an example to illustrate. Suppose we have some quotes, and I just put a couple of quotes on the screen. There are four. Just focus on the first one. And blank life is not worth living. So if you ask LLM to fill in this word, just saying, okay, this is the sentence, guessing whatever is missing. So there are many choices, right? So you can say a mindless life, passive life, and so on and so forth. Which one is accurate? And LLM really depends on maximum likelihood. So there is no accuracy notion of this LLM training pipeline. You only say, well, suppose the majority of my corpus saying this is minus, the voting minus is number one, am I going to use minus? And that's it. So it's very dangerous when we talk about LLM. We say, oh, LLM is biased. Of course, LLM can be biased because LLM is not going for accuracy. It's going for popularity. It's exactly like you search on Google. Google return you a link, which is the most popular link, not really the most accurate content link. But luckily, most accurate content is the most popular one. But there are definitely a lot of exceptions, okay? In this case, suppose we say, no, I'm going to provide you more context. I'm saying this is not just a famous quote. And so just don't do this using a maximum likelihood according to this particular sentence. I will tell you this is actually one of the famous Socrates quote. And now with Socrates as an information, and also talking about challenging your thinking for intellectual growth, then even under maximum likelihood, the missing word right now is correctly estimated as unexamined. And sorry, I will be coughing sometime because I'm still recovering from my flu. So here, I think this example shows you the powerfulness of context, and also show you how dangerous about lacking good context and the system fall into this default mode of maximum likelihood, which give you the most popular answer, not the most accurate answer. So here, one of my aphorisms, basically saying the LLM's performance can be good and can be bad. It really depends on how do you provide the contextual information. And the more robust the contextual information can be provided, the better quality the result can be. So if we just complaining LLM doesn't perform its work, it's not fair. Maybe we are not articulating our question accurately or precisely. So what are the difference between these two models, BERT and GPT? They are exactly the same in their tokenization. They do this word to vec, exactly the same. They're also using attention model. The only difference is BERT is good to fill the blank. It's a discriminative model, and GPT is a generative model. And most of folks saying, well, what's the big deal? I mean, from syntactic perspective, from computation perspective, you may think they are equivalent, but in the psychological space, they are not the same. That's using this mental iceberg of Sigmund Freud to make a discussion. So Floyd basically divide our consciousness and unconscious into three levels. And the high level conscious under the hood is unconscious. In the middle is sort of like a memory, subconsciousness. And now let's mapping this masked language model and also the regular language model onto this 2D Cartesian space. And on the x-axis, we show this conscious all the way down to unconsciousness. On the on the x, we show computation low on the left, computation high task on the right. So now we say, well, suppose we are using this masked language model. What's the level of operation of guessing these missing words, kind of masked language model? It's a memory kind of solving, right? Using memory to solve a problem. This is called discriminative. Multiple choice. I think in Asia, we all know about these multiple choice problems, and we get crammed into preparation for the joint entrance exams, and there's lacking creativity in that situation. But when you are asked to generate the next word, writing an essay, yes, you may write something based on memory, but creativity is critical for you to append the next word. There are just much more choices for one to append to create the next word in your essays. So therefore, even those two, mechanically, they are the same. But if you look at the psychological profile underneath, they are different. So I cannot prove this is the reason why BERT model suddenly disappeared, right? The entire Google right now is just following this traditional language model. But this is a good intuition to quite try to understand. A lot of time, only through understanding intuition, your research can really make meaningful advances. So the corollary here is LLM can be conditioned to deviate from their default maximum likelihood tendencies. I already gave you an example of this Socrates code, and there will be tons of experiments and examples in this talk. And so the first important thing is in context conditions with Bayesian statistics will be able to alter your LLM's behavior. And you don't want to take the default behavior all the time. So I'm using one of the example in my healthcare paper to illustrate. Suppose you query Cloud, say, well, I have a number of symptoms. I had that coughing, a runny nose, like myself right now. Can you predict the top 3 possible diseases I may have with probability? And the Cloud will give you some answers. At the same time, you say, okay, GPT, I'm going to ask you the same question. Can you give me a probabilistic distribution? So once you get results from the two agents, most likely they wouldn't give you identical answers. And also there's a way to push for different answers. Very easily, you can say, well, given a symptom of these 3, and the Cloud suggested I should have those kind of 3 diseases, please refute Cloud's decision. You ask GPT to refute. And here I use a parameter called you refute with very high contentiousness. You basically, you just want to say no to everyone and with good justifications. And later, let's come back to visit what did this contentiousness actually work? How does contentiousness change the behavior of LLM? But currently, it's very clear, right? You ask 2 different LLMs, they may not give you the same answer. And if you condition the second LLM to refute the answer of the first LLM, the second LLM wouldn't give you the default answers. You would just based on the first LLM's answers and trying to debate with it. And contentiousness here is a very important parameter. And I have done the following kind of experiments. I say, well, let me try contentiousness from 0 to 1. And 1 means just extremely contentious. I'm going to disagree with you on every matter. Just like if you look at the presidential debate, I'm not going to be rational with you. Whatever you say, I would just say, no, you are stupid, idiot, just doing crazy refutation. But that's really not productive. So therefore, I say maybe 0.9 is good enough, right? You basically, from 0.9, you can reduce gradually to 0. 0 means agreeable. Whatever you say, we are friends, and I can just reinforce your arguments. And so after I adjusting contentious level of multiple debates I ran with GPT-4, GPT-5, I'm sorry, GPT 3.5, and other models. At the end, I asked GPT, I say, okay, after using these different levels, what did you really do? Can you tell me what are the linguistic behaviors underneath you have changed to be able to emulate different contentious level? So this table, a lot of reviewers totally misunderstood. They thought this was the table I input to GPT to ask GPT to follow those behaviors. No, GPT automatically changing behavior based on different contentious level. At the end, GPT tells me what exactly it does. It says, well, under different contentious level, my tone can be different. My emphasis in the dialogue can be different. And the language I use will be different to focus on negativity when I want to refute the opponent's answers. So this table is very intriguing. And the LLM itself can emulate human behaviors. So at this point, I pause a little bit because I was going to talk about the last aphorism at the end, but now I think it's important to talk about it right now. Many people saying, well, LLM is just a black box, like deep learning is a black box. We have no idea what's going on. But it's important to understand the process of training LLM is to understand the corpus human already written. Could be poetry, could be many different things. So in a way, you can say the training of LLM is trying to understand and mimic humans using linguistic behavior to achieve human goals, right? We have a lot of goals. Our goal can be writing a love letter, writing an essay. We can write an email. And when we write different things, if email is to refute misunderstanding, whatever, was to express our opinion or changing schedules, linguistic behavior could be polite, right? Could be very kind of malicious. So LLM is not doing something just out of nothing. Entire process, we can really consider LLM is learning human linguistic behaviors to achieve human objectives. So therefore, we can ask LLM to change its linguistic behaviors given the different objectives. And this has been successfully done. At the end, I will come back to recap. But this contentiousness is the first evidence we have shown that we can actually changing the behaviors of your LLM. And we all understand every LLM is trained by a lot of knowledge, so it has breadth and depth of knowledge. So let's just recap what happened after the launch of GPT-4. And the day after the launch, Chang came to Stanford to give a talk presenting this paper. And this paper basically saying, well, GPT-4 is very great. The performance is outstanding. But unfortunately, OpenAI didn't allow us to pick in the other side. So we don't know what's going on. So he said, well, it's a black box. But during the discussion, only one interesting insight was revealed. And this picture was saying, well, suppose using GPT-4 with vision or without vision data, imagery, and compare with GPT-5. And you can see the performance data here. So performance data here means the higher means the higher accuracy. The shorter the bar means the lower accuracy on various tasks on the S-axis. And let's just look at two interesting bars. One is GRE verbal, and it's circled in the red. So GRE verbal without computer vision data and with computer vision data, the difference of performance is about 3%. So here you say, well, multimodality really helps. Okay, we can probably understand why multimodality helps here. Because if you refer to cat as a word, but also you have photos of cat, maybe some kind of transfer learning will happen, right, in the background. But what surprised us was this bar, GRE quantitative. The improvement after adding vision data is over 17%. So most of us have taken GRE quantitative, right? So can you imagine with vision data, with imagery data, the mathematics computation can improve by 17%. I cannot comprehend. So this is still something people need to look into, see what's going on. But multimodality here shows could be helpful, but not interpretable. But more stunning is this aphorism 7, called polydisciplinary. And this is mentioned by the CSO of Microsoft. Again, OpenAI did not allow Microsoft people to really get involved in the training process, so they can only look from outside. They can look outside of the black box. So therefore, their first conclusion was, oh, it's a black box. We have no idea what's going on over there. But the CSO, Eric, was saying, no, the most intriguing thing about LLM, and when he came to Stanford to give a talk, he said, I believe it's polydisciplinary. What does that mean? That means when we take university courses, we pursue a degree. Typically, we are single major. Like I'm a computer science major, someone may be psychology major. And sometimes you think a single major to do interdisciplinary research can be very challenging. So I say, okay, let's gather 3 different PhD to work on the project. So you have kind of multidisciplinary kind of research, but their expertise not really overlapping. In other words, the person who has psychology PhD has no idea about what is computer science. But we say, well, interdisciplinary can be much better because every person may have multiple disciplinary on his or her brain. So therefore, the synthesis of information can be more effective, which we pretty much agree, right? But what does polydisciplinary mean? Polydisciplinary means there's just simply no knowledge boundary whatsoever. So thinking about how LLM get trained. When LLM get trained, we know there are millions of documents, or if not billions documents, get input into the training corpus, training pipeline. And the attention model training process was just guessing the next word. And it has no idea what is the particular document, which domain this particular document belongs to. It has no idea whether this document is about physics, this document is literature, it's German, or even it's imagery or modality. So that strikes Eric to be, well, when LLM learns something, it has no idea about the underneath disciplinary. It means when LLM try to compose everything together, it's just a polydisciplinary. You can say it's a math, but it's no boundary of information. And therefore, there's a possibility the representation coming out from this polydisciplinary representation can encode something unknown to us, right? So I'm giving you some analogies, but you know the information in the word, only a small fraction is we know, probably less than 1%. And probably also less than 1% we don't know. But the vast majority of information out there is we don't even know we don't know. So therefore, if you say, well, you can ask LLM if you have any questions, but we will say in 99% of situation, we don't even know how to formulate a question. How can we get this multidisciplinary or even a polydisciplinary capability of LLM to answer us some novel results? So my mission in the near future is how can I take advantage of this polydisciplinary representation? And I am just like a 10 years old compared with LLM's intelligence. How can I, in this unknown situation, I can let LLM to reveal me something and teach me something which I don't know, so I can maybe win a Nobel laureate, right? Nobel Prize. And there was a joke I can talk to you about probably if we have time. But this becomes a very interesting possibility because LLM probably knows much more than us. It's just like we have no idea how to query the question. In an analogy, it's like you have this Nobel laureate award every year, and the previous awardees will join the meeting, right, sitting on the podium, and the new winner will come up to give a speech. Suppose I go there to try to ask questions to this panel of Nobel laureates. Whatever question I ask will be considered to be a joke, right? Immature, and whatever Nobel laureates try to answer my questions, their answer I probably couldn't understand. So I may complain just like a lot of readers or a lot of users of LLM saying, well, stupid, LLM hallucinate. Not necessarily, as at the beginning I said. If you give them some credit, maybe we just simply ignorant. So therefore, the first aphorism is it's all about asking the right questions. If you want to get good results, if you trust GPT-4 is already reaching a reasonable quality level, then in most of the situation, you probably don't want to just quickly blame on LLM. You probably want to say, maybe I didn't formulate the question accurately. So how do you formulate a good question? This is the endeavor which I have been working on in the last 2 years. The critical thinking is it takes two Socrates to think critically. Socrates has a famous quote saying, I only know one thing which I know nothing. So when Socrates taught to his students, maybe your advisor taught you in that way. Your advisor give you some assignment and he has no idea, or I have no idea what you are working on, but I know how to ask questions. So after maybe a month or two, I ask you, what did you do? And why do you want to do that? Why don't you using this or that approach? And then maybe you thought I was so intelligent to be able to kind of probing you to give you some feedback. And on the one hand, yes, I actually don't know much in the beginning, but during the discussion, not only the students get a lot of feedback, the professors knows exactly students' current tasks. This is, again, a win-win situation, but it really takes two people, right, to be able to have this kind of productive learning opportunity. And during the discussion, new ideas will come up. If you just one person sitting there and keep on iterate by yourself, then you probably don't need to come to university or getting any advisor. So this is one of very critical aphorisms. So I say, well, instead of I'm asking questions, why don't I put two Socrates together? I'm going to just post a question and then I moderate the discussion between the two, and they will give me much better results. Indeed, they gave me much better results over my imagination. So this segment of the talk is the most critical segment, is focusing on SocraSynth with information theory and critical thinking. So we mentioned about two agents talk to each other, and you can push the contentious level to be high. But that's just the first step. And if you saying something to a community, people will say, wow, this is just very abstract. It's very controversial, right? How the LLM knows how to tune contentiousness in different contexts properly. So we say, okay, let's do something more scientific. Right? People like math, otherwise all your paper get rejected. So we say, okay, let's put some math into our paradigm. And so we have a moderator stand in the middle, and he or she may not have a lot of knowledge, but that's okay. You have two large language models on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side. And a lot of humans sitting in the middle because we just listen. We listen, and at the end, we will analyze the discussion between the two LLM agents, and human make the final decision. And human can also convey some input to the moderator to convey to the two agents. And in the middle of discussion, they can refine their proposals and arguments. And you also see judges sitting on the side. And why the judges are there? Because we want to make sure the LLMs in this discussion, they are not talking nonsense. If they indeed doing hallucination, we want to be able to catch them. So the judges on the side, they are trying to evaluate the reasonableness of the discussion. So one of my aphorisms is, there may not be truth, but there are reasonableness, and we can gauge reasonableness. We may not be able to find truth. There are a lot of things are subjective, right? If you look at a piece of news and Republican will champion Republican agenda and vice versa. So in this world, the majority of the information may not have ground truth. In medicine, and according to Johns Hopkins survey, and 95% of the diagnosis could be accurate. But there are 6%, 5 to 6%, even in some situations, in some regions in the country, misdiagnosis 11%. But we always took those diagnostic data from CDC as ground truth. Unfortunately, ground truth may not be true. So there are quite a few things we need to fix here. One is we need to make sure the arguments are really sound in reasoning. And secondly, even the ground truth itself, we want to challenge because the ground truth can be actually false, right? Okay, let's focus on the debate first. So in the following example, I have just Gemini with GPT talking about a healthcare situation. So I provide the two agents with 12 different symptoms and ask them to predict top 3 diseases. And Gemini first round saying, well, based on these symptoms, I would say you have 3 possibilities with 3 different probabilities. So what I did was I asked GPT to challenge Gemini, and GPT refused Gemini. Details in the paper, I'm just going to talk at a high level. And Gemini look at the feedback from GPT saying, oh, you are reasonable, GPT. I made a mistake. So therefore, I'm going to change my prediction. So the second round of Gemini changes to be Tonki River to be the number 1 and the most likely one. And then the other diseases and Zika virus will become number 3. So interestingly, Gemini can actually concede its position after a so-called reasonable discussion. So this is very meaningful. And if you come back to look at this contentiousness table, and during the discussion, I didn't ask them to debate in high contentiousness all the time. In the beginning, yes, you have to do high contentiousness, which I will explain in information theory in a few slides. But after a few rounds, they should be in low contentiousness. They should come to some agreement so they can generate some conciliatory results. So therefore, human can execute the recommendations. So we start with contentious become 0.9. And in the middle of discussion, maybe second round or third round, we reduce to 0.5. And eventually, we reduce to 0.3 to ask 2 agents together making a joint recommendation. In this particular one, we say, well, at the end, okay, so thank you, Gemini, for changing your predictions. And then GPT-4 and Gemini, what else we should ask this patient? What additional query we should make? So therefore, your precision can getting better. Because in the last table, you see even Tonki River prediction, the probability is only 50%. That reflects the confidence of Gemini. 50% is not good enough. And the joint discussion from the 2 agents saying, oh yeah, you cannot just ask for symptoms. You need to ask for when each symptom starts and or the travel history, right? If the symptom starts in winter, it cannot be dengue fever. If you don't go to Southeast Asia or near the equator, it's unlikely you get dengue fever. So that's good. You ask patients for contextual information when and where they get the problems. That's very valuable. And the second set is, the correlations of all these symptoms together. A lot of time people just say, well, doctor will be lazy saying, there are a number of symptoms, just check whether you have them or not. And today, right, even today, majority of the physicians will just do that. But GPT and the Gemini say, no. You have to ask for the onset, sudden, gradual, and severity, and whether there are co-occurrence and the duration. And I present this to the collaborator hospitals. They are actually so surprised. They say those are the questions the physician should ask. But majority of them, 99% or 95%, will never ask those detailed questions. And finally, the symptom occur together or in close concessions. So you may have fever and headache together, or they are happening in random sequences. Those are also important clues. And more importantly, they say, not only you need to probe for more questions, but to disambiguate among the 3 possibilities, I recommend you to do 3 lab tests, right? These are blood tests and PCR and so on and so forth. So after you read the result, you have to say, using the dialogue, starting from refuting each other's decisions, and then you have the final recommendations of making the prediction even better. You just cannot argue multiple LLM cannot be very helpful. But this is definitely not just multiple or mixture of experts. We are not doing redundancy here. We are actually doing reasoning between the 2 agents. That's extremely critical, okay? And during the process, we came up with this second aphorism. hallucinations rarely repeat. Suppose you say, well, there are two agents. Occasionally, one of them will hallucinate because context may not be sufficient, especially in the early stage of the debate. But then we observe an interesting thing is, once you get into second round and third round, the contextual information get enriched. And because you have two agents ask each other questions, the first agent deliver its position and also provide arguments. The second agent basically saying, I disagree. Can you elaborate? Right? So the second question is very sharp. It's not like, well, imprecise. And even the first agent would hallucinate. It will be hallucinating based on different contexts. And do you consider the second hallucination will be able to enforce the first one? Would they be the same? Statistically, they will not be the same. Zero. Just like we have some bad dreams. I never had the same bad dreams twice, right? So statistically, hallucination rarely repeat. And in addition, we are improving context and refining question round by round. This is an iterative process. So hallucination virtually goes away after the second and third round. So let's come back to look at this picture. Say, wow, great, you have this different contentious level. But how can I scientifically and according to algorithm, I can tune this contentious level based on information? So this is a recent paper we just submitted to a conference. And let me just summarize the key elements. The key elements, we are using information theory and its various matrices to try to measure the gap between two agents' opinions and also their mutual information. So there are quite a few metrics here, but I want to highlight three. The first one is this Westerson distance, which is called Earth mover distance. It's comparing the distribution difference of two probability distribution. So let's say one agent make 5 disease prediction on a patient, and the second agent make another 5 disease predictions. And you want to compare these two distributions to see their differences. Westerson is even more powerful than entropy. Because entropy, suppose you have a probability of 0.2, 0.8, the other one is 0.8, 0.2 on different diseases, entropy would say they are the same. But Western distance and the Earth mover would say they are different because they are really based on their different outcomes and doing distribution difference comparison. And also mutual information is important. In the beginning, you have two agents giving two different predictions. So their mutual information should be low. And gradually, after they start to exchange information, then mutual information should be improving. And then finally, divergence, Shannon divergence or KL divergence should be getting lower and lower because eventually two agents come into agreement. So once we have that intuition, and I just show you our experimental results. So we have two agents, again, debating about whether a patient has jaundice or hepatitis. And from round to round, you look at round one, look at the left-hand side, the entropy saying, well, the two agents, their prediction has two different entropies. But as I said, entropy not really can tell the difference between two distributions. So you look at the Westerson distribution, the gap is very large, like 1.3. And also Westerson is normalized. So you can compare different cases using the same distance function. And then the second iteration, and the distance getting shorter, but getting smaller. And entropy here getting higher, this is a perturbation. So entropy may not be most reliable, but this Earth mover distance is really reliable. And in the third iteration, the distance is much smaller. And at the same time, you look at mutual information. Mutual information in the beginning was only 0.39, increased gradually, and eventually shoot up to about 50% and staying there. So from this picture, you can get two intuition. You say, in the beginning, I want you to have a large distance because I want two agents to have different perspectives, right? And in a few slides, I'm going to show you the optimum starting position. So if two agents right away agree with each other and agreeable with each other, so if you use GPT only one instance and twice, you get same answers. There's nothing to help you. But if you use two different instances of GPT, they don't share context. They may give you slightly different answer, but still not good enough. But you use two agents, but you want to condition them to one to refute the other, and that will give you a large distance. And when the mutual information start to converge, and that's the time you want to reduce contentiousness, because there's nothing to contend about. They're already agreeable with each other. So you want to say, well, now you want to make conciliatory kind of remarks. So from this picture, hopefully we get the intuition of saying, well, when divergence start to decrease, we also want to decrease contentiousness. When divergence kind of on the right-hand side, divergence start to converge or mutual information also converge, then you want to stop being contentious, right? So that makes a lot of sense. And at the same time, we have this entropy duality theorem. This is critical for us to understand how the debate actually can work most effectively. If we say two agents, they have two different opinions, but they are so stubborn, means their entropy is very low, right? They say agent one saying, I insist this patient has hepatitis B. Agent B say, no, must be jaundice. And they are not going to barge. Each person saying the probability of my prediction is 100%. And there's no room for discussion. But if one agent is insistent on high entropy, the other one has low entropy. So low entropy one is a stubborn one. And high entropy one is, well, the prediction could be ABC. Each one of them I can assign some probabilities. And this case appears to be the optimum pairing of two LLMs. It seems to be counterintuitive. The two low entropy put together, you have two stubborn guys. You put two high entropy people together, they are all over the places. They cannot converge. One high entropy, one low entropy. The high entropy one will introduce new perspective to the low entropy one. The low entropy one will stay to be exploiting, insisting the prior. At the same time, also listen to the high entropy's opinions. And if the argument is reasonable, the low entropy agent will yield, right? Just like the first example I show you. And this theory is provable if you have this kind of dual entropy setting in the beginning. The discussion will be able to uncover all perspectives, number one, and secondly, will converge to something really productive. And this is another example, and let me just skip forward here. So once you have this entropy value, you have Earth mover distance function producing values, you have mutual information. Now you know how to tune your contentious level, right? So when the mutual information improving, you can say, oh, don't be so contentious anymore. When mutual information is picked from round to round, you say, no, if you are still forcing them to be contentious, they will be saying something maybe nonsense. They will be, for the sake of arguing, to come up with some hypothesis that may not be very productive, okay? So this is the kind of the first part of this putting two agents together to have a constructive collaboration. And they are adversarial of each other, but at the same time, they are also collaborating depending on how you tune the parameters. And now, again, compare with all the existing work, people talking about debate, multiple agents, they are not really paying attention to all these fine-grained calibrations. And so did they address, or SocraSynth address the problems of LLMs? Number one, hallucination. As I said, statistically impossible to reinforce the same hallucination. So it's gone. With also with refined questions and much enriched contextual information. And bias mitigation is also gone because you are encouraging at least one agent to be accurate, means diversify, not going after the maximum likelihood. And the other one, fine, going after maximum likelihood, but through reasoning conversation, hopefully will converge something more reasonable. So the third one is very important. How are you sure the reasoning between LLMs are conducted productively or in high quality? And This will take some time to dive into details, but again, it's another aphorism saying there's a seldom truth. There is only a reasonableness. And the maximum likelihood only provide popular answer, but not accurate answer. This is high reinforcement. I just want to say, well, a lot of time you look at some other papers, you just feel really sad. Even they get accepted by tough conferences. One example was a paper saying, well, if I want to validate something is truth or not, let me go back to Wikipedia to check for the results. And I say, Wikipedia, can you say Wikipedia's output or content is truth or accurate? If you read the Wikipedia editorial board's output, they say only 5% of their content they consider to be accurate, to be high quality. Because Wikipedia, a lot of pages, they only have maybe European perspectives or one perspective to articulate the content. They are missing many perspectives. So stunning, right? So you look at the paper saying, well, we are improving LLM's output quality based on fact-checking with Wikipedia's. Well, just to me, just really sad. Okay, the next big topic is critical thinking. And I think I still have 15 minutes, but if you have any questions, let me just pause a little bit to entertain your question right now. So the next phase is going to judges, right? How the judge is judged for quality of the debate. So any burning question right now?
No, I don't think so. Not in the classroom.
Okay, that's great. Let me just continue quickly with only 15 minutes. So the judges for the quality. And the judges not judging for truth again, right? They only judge for reasonableness. And look at this algorithm is pretty straightforward. This is from chapter 4 of the book. So given a document D, first of all, we want to identify what is the claim of this document. It's not really hard to find a claim. All the LLMs can output you the good claim, okay? So once you get a claim, you ask LLM to say, tell me, what are the supporting arguments for the claim? So LLM will give you a number of reasons in a set of R. And then you say, can you give me the counter arguments against the reasons? So LLM will find you the counter arguments. And this subroutine is perfect for the use of the judges. So once the debate has finished and the two LLMs has a summary document, the summary is we are proposing the disease should be A, B, C, and these are the supporting arguments. At the same time, agent B has refuted with the following counter arguments, A, B, C. So you input everything into this CRIT algorithm. The CRIT algorithm will be able to evaluate every single argument to see whether the reasoning quality is high or low. And they compare argument quality and compare with counter argument quality. And finally, output you a score. So this is what the judge will be doing. And for judge, we actually didn't employ GPT-4 to be the judge. Because GPT-4, we say, well, you are very knowledgeable, but reasoning, maybe every LLM has reasoning capability. So therefore, we ask GPT-4, GPT 3.5, or even a weaker version of like DaVinci to be the judge. And the behavior is very consistent. They judge the debates, they give the same scores. Okay, and then the people argue with me saying, well, so you are just relying on LLM to do everything, even including judging for the quality of reasoning. So you are doing nothing yourself, doing no research, right? So, okay, I get back to this point shortly, but we study very hard about all the reasoning methods, and Socrates is the master. And Socrates' method, although it's a singular, there are actually multiple sub-methods, including on the left-hand side, definition, generalization, induction. I'm recommending to you to read the chapter 4, and you can map those different kind of reasoning method into one of the three reasoning paradigm: deductive, inductive, and abductive. Then once you can map them to one of the three, then there are tons of tools, statistical tools, machine learning tools out there we can utilize to perform reasoning for us. So therefore, we can validate whether the arguments is valid or the source of argument is reliable, and whether the argument wins or counter argument win, right? But should we rebuild the algorithms to evaluate this inductive reasoning quality or deductive reasons by ourselves? You must be kidding, because LLM has virtually all the information in the world. If LLM cannot do superior inductive reasoning, deductive reasoning than our own engines, then it must be kidding, because we cannot build another engine to do reasoning better than LLMs, right? Because we don't have such computational power and so many documents. And I'll give you another aphorism at the end to enforce why we just shouldn't do that. And at the same time, counterfactual reasoning is helpful to reinforce the quality of reasoning. There are a lot of people saying, well, if LLM doing reasoning depends on its memory and not really depends on reasoning capability, how can you find out? And to find out is not very hard. You just use counterfactual reasoning to probe its one particular reason, changing one condition to see whether it can do generalization or not. If not, you know that particular inference could come out with memory rather than really kind of generalization of the existing reasoning. But you can argue, well, that's important or that's not important, but at least there's an avenue you can discover whether the reasoning quality is really coming from memory or coming from generalization. And this is an aphorism I kind of refuting this kind of reviewer saying, well, you are just using LLM to do reasoning quality kind of evaluation, you are lazy. But objectivity is the hard problem in philosophy. That was my original aphorism. So the problem human has run into in research, not only in AI research, but notably in computer vision and NLP, how many heuristical-based algorithms we have developed in the last 50 years, right? If you are in computer vision, you must remember a paper talking about SIFT, using this kind of resolution invariant method to extract features out of images, and you say, wow, I accomplished a feature invariance, even you enlarge the photo, doing cropping, whatever. That paper was cited thousands of times. But since this data-driven model come to alive, that paper disappeared. And similarly, NLP had a lot of heuristical algorithms accumulated in 70 years. They all disappeared. And my colleagues in computer vision and the NLP, in the beginning, they kind of resisted. At the end, they all gave up saying, yeah, you are right. I mean, this end-to-end training. So when Demis Hassabis came to Stanford to try to persuade this stubborn faculty member, he said, well, don't be sad, because I give you 3 examples. When AlphaGo was trained, we used 60 million human kind of playing history to input to AlphaGo, and we won we won over the world champion. Then we say, well, why do we want to use humans' records, right? The humans' records, there are some mediocre plays. We just get rid of them. We know the rules of Go. So we do this AlphaGo 0. We play from 0, from nothing. And we know the rules, so we can eliminate the stupid moves. So AlphaGo compared with AlphaGo 0, AlphaGo 0 wins 100%. So this is the first proof of me saying human heuristic is counterproductive, right? The second example is AlphaFold 2 versus AlphaFold 1. AlphaFold 1 was a bunch of DeepMind researchers saying, well, the protein folding, once folding this sequence of amino acid fall into a structure. Once I know the structure, can I encode the structure in a table of 5 dimensions? It's just between atoms, right? Between amino acid, I only need to know between 2 acids, their distance, their rotation, whatever. There are just 5 dimensions people can see. If I encode everything already in this table, I guarantee there's no information missing. So AlphaFold 1 should be optimum given the condition. Then AlphaFold 2, Dimi is saying, get rid of the table. I ask you to do end-to-end learning. And maybe the machine will come up with some ingenious features in the middle, which you don't understand. And ho and below, AlphaGo 0, AlphaFold 1 scored 45 points, AlphaFold 2 scores 90 points. It just blew a mile of people away. And what are the intermediate features AlphaFold 2 learned? Nobody knows. It's a black box. But it's a lesson to us saying, please, if you have LLM already sitting there, don't try to reinvent your wheels, right? One particular example is chain of thought. Do you think chain of thought is a heuristic model or chain of thought is universal model? Chain of thought classified by the reasoning paradigm, it's not deductive reasoning. It's not inductive reasoning. It's abductive reasoning. It's kind of speculative reasoning. So if you solve a problem to say, I solved the problem using this chain of thought, and the other person saying, I use a different chain of thought. So different people input different chain of thought, and they are not exhaustive. And also, there are some paths for solving the problem. Only this polydisciplinary representation of LLM knows how to do it. Then in that situation, why do you want to advocating chain of thoughts to be done by human, right? So those are really based on historical records saying, no, don't reinvent the wheel if you can do end-to-end training. And self-driving vehicle is another example. I'm not going to give you the details. And the Google totally fall flat on the surface because they try to put Google Map as an intermediate level between the driving vehicle and the environment. They say, well, with the map, we can interpret everything, right? But sorry, Tesla get rid of the map. Just do end-to-end verification using the millions of vehicles driving out there, and they get much better results. So unless we haven't learned the lessons, please, heuristic solutions, don't do it again, okay? So your students come up with some heuristic solutions, try to figure out other heuristic, and try to debate with this corner subjective method of solving problems. The era is gone, sadly. Okay, so we have some very successful application already deployed and also published in the papers you can find in financial investment, in healthcare, in correcting Wikipedia biases, and even we perform sales planning for corporations. And the final two things, I probably don't have time to cover, but I can leave a paper for you guys. And it's about 2 years ago, I started teaching consciousness, try to build consciousness on top of unconsciousness. And we have made some good progress. And when we talk about AI safety, you can thinking about the whole problem as computation is done in unconscious level, habitual repetition. But in the conscious level, you say, well, this is not right, and we should make correction, whatever. But when you model linguistic and want to correct linguistic behaviors, that should be in conscious mode, right? That's number one. And number two is model linguistic behaviors is not very, very hard, unlike what people thought. This is the aphorism I just presented, aphorism 10, saying, oh, because LLM, when it trained, is mimicking human solving human problems, human objectives, and using linguistic behaviors. So already LLM is composed of thousands or millions of human behaviors. So you just need to tap into this LLM, this big ingenious model. You can intelligently changing the behavior of LLM. If we have successfully changing the behavior of contentiousness, I believe we can change the behavior of LLM to be loving and more caring. And this is a paper I just submitted already actually in the open domain. You are interested, you can take a look. The basic idea is the current reinforcement learning with human feedback, I consider to be not scalable because you are just hammering on individual behaviors of instances, right? Or you are not tidy, you didn't wash your dishes, you didn't clean up your kitchen. But you actually want to model tidiness behavior. So this whack-a-mole kind of situation is just going to destroy your machine because you are backprog the parameters for wagging moles into your knowledge base parameters. So a lot of people already citing after you do reinforcement learning with human feedback, the OpenAI's coding quality degrades, right? So you have to separate the two. So therefore, our architecture is the following. We model emotions, then we only, on top of emotions, we model behaviors. And those are slides I'm going to provide you, but those are critical slides behind why model emotion on top of behavior, on top of emotion is extremely critical. It's based on Plato's theory about 2,000 years ago. And our model is able to adapt to different culture because in our model, we have two agents. One agent we call Dike. The other agent is Ares. And Dike and Ares are two goddesses in Greek mythology. And one is to support justice. The other one just a troublemaker, trying to probing the Dike's opinion, trying to just have different opinions. So the model we built, first of all, we leave large language model alone. So knowledge, fine. We have a red line between LLMs and our behavior regulation model. So therefore, we won't run into this reinforcement learning with human feedback trap of contaminating or having this forgetting effect on the original LLMs. So we have Dike, which has this constitution of behaviors. This is probably universal. Then we have Ares as a separate adversary component. For every culture, we can consult this Ares, culture-dependent Ares, to say, oh, suppose I'm in a particular region under different religion. So our culture may not have the same behavior kind of alignment situation compared with the standard one. So can I make a difference or make a change? So this is very effective. So if you trust SocraSynth to be very effective, then using Ares to be the kind of challenging component to Dike's constitution can do this adaptation, customization in a seamless fashion. And everything is expandable, right? You can look at the debate script, and if you disagree, human can inject the input using reinforcement learning into Ares and into Dike. So here, reinforcement learning is not going to LLM. It's only going to your behavior alignment models. So with that, I'm concluding my today's talk. And of course, a bigger topic, and also I've studied for 5 years, was this free will versus determinism. But this is the high order kind of concept you have to study. Otherwise, your local kind of research can be running into a very, very shallow stage. And computational consciousness, this paper I published about 2 years ago, also was a chapter in a book. Okay, so this concludes my discussion. And the book on the left-hand side is free on the internet. You can just download. And I documented all the aphorisms and the chapters of the book, all the abstracts of the chapters of the book. And the second one, the Kindle version is really dirt cheap. And even you want to buy a copy, and you can talk to your professor, and I can give an author discount, maybe under $10 or $14, and you can get a hard copy. And but most of papers are actually already open source, already online, and you can use the book on the left-hand side to search for those archive articles on the internet. Thank you so much.